What's up, guys? David DeSell here, your host of the Business with the Boys podcast. And this is a really good episode. Luke and his team had reached out to Landon and I, and immediately upon reading his speaker packet, I knew we had to have him on. He has an amazing story. And if you're someone who's dealing with adversity right now, you're definitely going to want to tune into this episode. If you've been through adversity, or even if you haven't, you likely will at some point in your life. And Luke's perspective is going to be extremely impactful for all of you. So let me go ahead and tee Luke up, and then we'll go ahead and dive right in. So Luke Lunkenheimer, his life reads like a script, truly. But there's nothing fictional about it. He's a small town kid that had dreams of going pro in football, and really his future came crashing down after a brutal injury. And with no backup plan, he turned to car sales. And by his teens, he was already pulling in six figures. However, success couldn't save him from the chaos that followed. With his injury, he had a botched shoulder surgery, which led to a crippling painkiller addiction. And to be frank, in a moment of desperation, he got caught up in a bank robbery that actually landed him in prison. And it was in that cell that he hit rock bottom and realized that he had a choice. He can either let his mistakes define him or ultimately fight to rebuild. And when he was released, the former boss took a chance on him, loaning him 150,000 to start a car dealership. And Luke poured everything he had into it, scaling his business to three dealerships worth over 12 million by the year 2020. But along the way, he discovered that his true passion wasn't actually cars, it was people. And that's how Paid to Persuade was born, which is a sales philosophy that ditches the hard sell and focuses on real connections. His journey taught him that authenticity is the ultimate sales tool, and now he's showing others how to succeed by simply being themselves. Luke is someone who he's extremely passionate about what he does. He's very sincere in what he does, and you're going to capture that as you listen to today's episode. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That mean you really playing with your life. I'm about to come and run it all back. Well, Luke, I've been pretty fired up for this episode. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Very happy to be here.
And where are you dialing in from? I can't remember. Are you already in Vegas or going to Vegas when you
No,
going out there?
eventually, yep, we're getting the house up on the market and doing that right now, but I am still in the lovely metropolis of upstate central New York.
Very nice. Well, I've been particularly excited about this episode because I know you have a different past than most people that we have on the show, and you have taken your past and not let it define you, although it has defined you, if that makes sense. You've
Mhm.
chosen to take a positive turn and positive outlook, and you've built things of significance as a result. But just to set the stage for our listeners today, give us a sense of what I'm alluding to on my end.
Yeah, man, most people know me as the guy who had a real bad drug problem, came from a small town, had a football scholarship, got injured, screwed it up, got a surgery. Surgery went bad, got hooked on painkillers, spent from the age of 20 to 30 stealing, robbing, debauchery, drugs, just very bad, reckless lifestyle, burning a lot of bridges, making a lot of bad decisions. And then kind of at the precipice of that, around the age of 30, I walked into a bank and held up a bank, and got carted off to prison, did a while in prison. And then on the back side of that, had a pretty substantial change to my life and my values and have kind of been building from there. But I'm the bank robber turned sales trainer slash car dealer for most people. So that's what you're
And
alluding to, I believe. Either that or the trendy design that I bring to the table here.
well, I am curious. How long were you in prison for?
So prison, I was in prison for a year behind that charge. Collectively, I've done over 2 years between county jail bids and prison bids. It was, it was kind of a buildup. So it was a little stint here and there, a slap on the wrist, and then screw up again in some house arrest, and then screw up the house arrest, and then a county bid. And then we graduated to big boy jail in 2015 and went off to prison. I was very lucky. I was willing at that point to admit I had a pretty bad problem. And when you get locked up and it's behind a drug charge, well, not necessarily a drug charge, but a drug related crime, it was very obvious that my behavior of larcenies and drug charges, it's just the typical tale told by the rap sheet of a drug addict and somebody that just continues to go further down the spiral. And when you get in the correction system and they see that and you're willing to say, yes, I do have a problem. I don't want to be a criminal. I'd like to reform. What do you got for me? Places like New York have what is called a shock incarceration correction program, where if you're willing to go through 6 months of living hell in a paramilitary boot camp, they'll consider sending you home early. So I elected for that and got lucky enough for them to lose my paperwork for about 5.5 months and end up doing the whole year and still doing the shock program. So I was real unlucky in that regard, but it was all means to something way bigger. It happened the way it was supposed to, and that's what put me where I am today, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Now,
Got to imagine the shock program probably, it's probably sucked going through it, but I'd imagine it's probably been a pretty good catalyst where you're at today.
Yeah, it's corrections, right? So the goal is to correct an individual, and the behaviors that a criminal usually exudes are, lack of compliance with authority, deep narcissism, no regard for others. And when you get a group of guys who all behave that way, the best medicine is usually, institutionalized correction, some sort of boot camp, or, you get a lot of guys that are lost in life. What do their parents tell them to do? Well, go in the military. Military will straighten you out. And it does. It usually, it's pretty polarized. It goes one of two ways. If somebody goes to shock camp, they either go in there, screw up, get in a fight, tee off, what they call pop off, which is getting a fight with a guard or something like that, or continue very incessant criminal behavior, and they get carted back to prison and get time added to their sentence. For the ones that get there and realize, this is going to be hell, but it's only 6 months of hell versus 2 years of quasi hell, in prison, and they can swallow that pill, then they get out on the other side of it. And for me, yeah, man, it was hell. It was a hands-on program. So they're not gentle with you. They make sure that you're going to earn it. But if you're the kind of person that can put your mind in a place, and that place is, for the next 6 months, I'm willing to allow someone to say, do, within reason. They have to abide by the letter of the law for the most part. Allow someone to own the inside of my brain, or conversely, not let them own the inside of my brain. Just let whatever they say bounce out. They're going to tell me that they're sleeping with my girlfriend. They're going to tell me that they grabbed my girlfriend's rear end when she was going through the security screening. They're going to tell me that, my mother is a, WHORE. I'm not sure what the language
You're
restrictions
good.
are on
You
this
can say whatever
podcast.
you'd
But,
like.
when you get some guy that's 6'7", 300 pounds telling you that he's going to fuck your mother and bang your girlfriend, and you just got done sucking on her nipples in the weight room for the security clearance into the visits, you realize those things aren't happening, but nevertheless, those words still get under your skin. But, it's a character builder. And if it does the appropriate job, you come out the better, the backside of it, a better human being, or they do what they intend to do, which is find the people who can't stand the heat and will not be responsible in society, and they throw their asses back in prison. So luckily I was the former of the two, at least until now.
Was a
So
big part of it learning like schedule and being just like regimented as well? I mean, is that part of it? Is it similar to military where hey, it's 3 square meals a day, your ass is up, 5:30 a.m., whatever, and you go to work, you go to boot camp type stuff. Like, is that part of it as
Yes,
well?
100%. So it's getting you to become a participating, responsible member of society, right? So
Yep.
you'd be amazed. Maybe you wouldn't. I was amazed at how many individuals in there did not know that once you exit your bed and go on about your day, you should make your bed. That was something that was a major awakening for some of the individuals. Another major awakening for some of them was that a shower minimum once a day was a hygienic necessity. Like, you're expected to bathe. Another was, defecating in a toilet versus in the corner of the room. Like you'd be amazed when you get in the cesspool of society. And I mean no disrespect to those people, but it, or these people, because I was one of them at one point. But it's well, not behaviorally, but certainly in where I was cordoned off.
Actions.
Yeah, you're just amazed, and you're like, bro, you didn't like when you're, they say on the streets or in the town. When you're in the town, you don't shower every day. Ah, bro, like, what am I gonna do? The water bill's crazy, the power bill's crazy. Like, it's insane what you realize. So,
Wow.
meanwhile, you're going, okay, shower, iron my pants, organize my dresser, make my bed. That's not so bad. And these other guys are like, that's just crazy. They want us to have 2 finger spacing between our hangers. I'm like, bro, I put my black pants and my khaki pants together in my closet. I don't know what you're doing, right? So, but then the flip side of it, some of the things that were completely normal for them, like somebody reaching over your food to grab another piece of food, instead of just saying, excuse me, they stand up and crack somebody in the jaw. And everybody looks over and, oh, it must be reached over his food. And you're like,
Seems excessive.
that seems a little excessive. I probably would have just said, excuse me. But, it's an awakening. And yes, to your point, there's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of organizational. I can tell you the main goal of that program is make sure that this person knows that they're not in charge, that the law is to be abided by, and that if you want to be a functional, participating member of the society, if you want the protection of the police, if you want the safety of the fire department, if you want to be able to walk on the clean, groomed sidewalks, if you want to be able to use the public library system, if you want to be able to travel on the highways that we groom and maintain for you, if you want to maintain the benefit of the society that you live in, you must operate within the confines of the laws that everybody else does as well. Because these individuals truly don't feel like the law applies to them. They get away with what they get away with, and as long as they're not locked up for it, it's just their way of life. So,
We need to send a lot more people to shock camp.
brother, I left that place and I told, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I left there and I said, every young man should have to do something like this for 2 years of their life. No questions asked, minimum a year. Like the things that it did for me, just behaviorally, and it wasn't like I was too far off the beaten path. It was just more so seeing the value in these things, like the things that it did for you from a a serotonin standpoint, just good, just feeling good about yourself, and the reward of certain things. And there's that speech of that Navy SEAL, I believe he's an admiral or something, gives about
Yeah,
a
about
task
making your
completed and
bed.
making your bed. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of merit to that, and that speech resonated with me when I got out of there. But long answer to a small question. There's many facets to that stone, but organizational skills is certainly one of them.
Now, I don't have the stats handy to back this up, but I'd be willing to bet that it's true, where there's a large percentage of people that when they get out of prison, they end up back in prison for something.
Yeah, recidivism is the word.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at some
90,
point,
90, 93% is the statistic that you're looking
Holy
for.
shit.
okay, damn, that's
Wow.
insane. Okay, so you're
That's
part
that's
of
drug related recidivism. People with a drug
okay.
problem that get locked up that go back. Overall recidivism, I believe it's probably, we could chat GPT it, but I would guess right along with you 65 to 70%.
Okay, so the majority. So let's just say,
Yep.
as we sit here today, and we don't anticipate you changing for the worse, you're part of the 7%.
That is correct. Yep.
When when did you make the decision in your mind that not only were you getting out, but you weren't going back, and while you're out, you're going to build something of significance? Was that on your walk in, on your walk out, at some point in between? Like, there had to have been an inflection point where
Yeah.
you made the decision of like, fuck this, I'm doing something significant.
Yes.
What was that like, and
The
when was
first
it?
day, it was the first day I woke up without opiate withdrawals.
That's
And
what I
how
was gonna
long
say.
was that?
Did they put you in a Shake Shack or anything when you? Because I obviously they just let you dry out and go through
No,
it.
no, they do. They just
Ooh.
it's brutal, brother. I don't wish that upon anybody. You could line up my worst enemies in the world, and I have a few, and say, hey, I could smack them around, I could shoot them. I would just say, just shoot them and bury them. Don't make them go through opiate withdrawal. That there's no need to go through that. It is just absolutely brutal on the body, the mind, the resolve, the people around you. It's quite literally hell on earth. It is. There's nothing about those. And the worst part is, It is the deeper the heavier of a user you are. It's not like everybody gets over it in 3 or 4 days. Like I was in withdrawals for 6 months. Like I was in
Holy shit.
acute, strong withdrawals for a month and a half. I was in post-acute withdrawals for the remaining 4.5 months. It wasn't until I had been in county for several months. I'd been in reception upstate in Elmira, New York, in a supermax facility that looks just like the Shawshank Redemption prison for a month and a half. It wasn't until I got up into Mariah, New York, breathing negative 13-degree ice cold Adirondack air, going on 5-mile runs in the morning, that I actually wake up and feel like I didn't have bone ache, that I didn't have sweats, that I didn't have to run to the bathroom, that I didn't have just a lethargy or a lack of desire to move. It messes with your testosterone, it messes with your serotonin reuptake, it messes with your endorphins. You just lose a lot in that time. And to answer your question, the first morning I woke up and it was 4:30 a.m. and they were screaming, blowing the whistle, banging the trash cans, getting us out of bed. Maybe it was 5 a.m. I got up, I stood on the line, and I remembered the floor didn't hurt. My legs didn't hurt. I had muscle soreness from the runs, but I felt like I didn't think about using a pill. It was the first morning that I had said that I hadn't said, man, if I could just get a pill, life would be so much better. And in that moment, that was the moment that I had the thought, and then every day consecutively that I did not have strong withdrawals, and they come and go. They say that as long as you've used is as long as you will have, issues as far as not being completely normal. And I used for a decade. So it's been a hard road. But as far as saying, you know what, there's a shot at me having a life worthwhile, getting something done, maybe making up for the past 10 years of my life and actually accomplishing something with this life that I've been given. It was the first morning I woke up not in acute opiate withdrawals.
Now, did you spend time from that moment until you got out thinking of what you were going to do with your life afterwards? And like what was day one like when you got out? Like what was step one? Because in a lot of ways, you're in the very similar scenario as most people before they become entrepreneurial. They're trapped in some prior version of themselves, be it
Yep.
in a corporate job or still in school, and there's this angst to finally take the leap of faith and become an entrepreneur. Like, what did you do when you first came out?
That's a good question, and it's a little bit loaded because there's more than it's not that easy, right? So I had they gave it, you could buy composition notebooks on the commissary, and that was like the only thing that you had was your notepad and your pen. You could have nothing there. So I had these composition notebooks full of entrepreneurial ideas. I wrote part of a book in one. I wrote poetry in another, which I'm not particularly good at, just so you know. I drew sketches of what my business would look like, and I made a list of books I wanted to read, people I wanted to meet, things I wanted to do, and just because the brain, it's like ventilation, right? The brain just, when you're like me, and you learn, there's always a reason for everything. Everything has a precursor, right? Things don't just happen, right? So the reason I became such a vicious drug addict, we later find out, is because I've got a terrible, terrible case of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, at which, if you know anything about that disease, it is a lack of naturally occurring dopamine. So whereas the normal human being walks and lives their life in their daily routine, they see a bird, singing a song, they get a little fuzzy dopamine hit and it feels good, or someone, a beautiful woman says hi to them, they get a dopamine hit. They just have these dopamine hits throughout the day that make their life worth living. Someone with ADD gets very little, if any, naturally occurring dopamine. So life is the doldrums. It just sucks. So the reason they're constantly moving and jittering and looking at their phone and playing with the Rubik's Cube and bouncing and slapping and talking, they're looking for stimulus. It's only an extreme stimulus that actually ignites their dopamine response. So, that's why I was, BMX bikes off of ramps, off of roofs of houses, why I skydove the moment I turned 18 and could do so legally, why I would take a golf cart and jump it over a mogul hill at the golf course instead of just, hitting my 9-iron. Like, this is the life that you live. So getting back to your question, which was what now? Sorry, there's the ADD.
Yeah.
So when you got out, like, what was step one? Like,
Yeah,
what
so
did that first day look
yeah,
like?
yep. So sorry, but just meeting, the many faceted stone of that problem. I had all these visions of grandeur and all these things I wanted to do, but then you get out and realize you have $40 cash. and the clothes you walked in with, which were not nice clothes because of the life that you were living. And then you get paroled to your girlfriend's apartment, which her father and her had been kind enough to get a nice apartment and get all set for me to come home. And there was clothes for me. I had it very, I had a lot better than a lot of guys. I had people that cared about me, that didn't necessarily do much while I was in, but when I came out, made sure I had a shot because they knew who I was as a sober person. So you get out and it's like, you want to do all these entrepreneurial things. You have all these, but it's like, okay, we need to put food on the table tomorrow. And the rent's due in 11 and a half days. And I don't even have a job, right? So the initial, hitting the ground was getting on a Centro bus at 5:30 in the morning to ride downtown, to go 10 miles in an hour because of all the stops. So riding on a bus in this arduous, just route for an hour to get downtown, to wait until 7:30 for the transfer bus to come to take me out to another part of town, to get on the bus that got me to the job at 8:15 that didn't open until 9. The business opened, but my job didn't start. So I'd go in and sit in the lunchroom for 45 minutes. No cell phone, no nothing. Didn't have the money for it. Didn't have the means for it. Just sit there and read the newspaper and chew on a bagel that you got at the bus stop. So the morning started at 4:45 a.m., but I didn't actually physically start my job until 9 a.m. And, you're doing that for $18 to $20 an hour for 8 hours a day to only go through a 3 to 4 hour process to get home, right? So that's where you start. Very difficult to have entrepreneurial spirit when that's what's going on, and you're realizing that's just what you need to do to survive right now. And then there's parole. You got to check in with parole, make sure that you're here by curfew, and there's very little life to live at that time. But I can tell you this, I can sum it all up in this. I was just willing to do whatever it took to move to the next lily pad. So whatever it was that I did with ruthless intensity. Okay. So if I waited at the bus stop, I was reading a book. When I got on the bus, I was listening to an audiobook. When I got on an old iPod. Okay. When I got to work, I was scrubbing the break room until I was just going to be known as the guy that was getting something done and staying out of trouble. And the more I did that, the more people took notice. I lost, I believe, 2 jobs when I first got started because I was very creative in how I interviewed, and I wrote everything down on the application that I was a felon and I had these charges and so on and so forth. But during the interview questioning, I'm a good salesman, I was able to circumvent the questions in the right way to seem like I was probably more qualified than I was. And then, of course, after a few weeks, they go back, they read through HR stuff. Did you know this guy robbed a bank like a year and a half ago? It's like,
we can't have him be a teller.
Get him out of here. Yeah. And the worst part was I was doing a hell of a job for one of the places I worked at. They actually, it was like 2 months in, they offered me store manager.
I hate to have to do this. Yeah.
And so anyways, as far as the entrepreneurial thing is concerned, there was a lot of ideas and a lot of desire, but a long time before it could come to fruition in my mind. But some things transpired very quickly that just, I don't believe in chance, but I believe in things are placed in front of you when you're ready to receive them. And I was put in a position where somebody else was desperate. They had opened a car dealership. They didn't know what they were doing. They were bleeding money. They knew I was recently out, that I had good business acumen and knew about cars. And, long story short, I went from having no license, no car, and fired from 2 jobs to a dealer plate, a checkbook, a store to run, and a demonstrator vehicle in a 60-day period. From that point, when that happened, it was off to the races until about 11 months later. That same individual had a drug problem, was sinking the business behind it, was spending all our equity. Everything that I built was just bleeding out into drugs and his addiction, and his prostitutes and everything else. Stole $40,000 cash from me. And then I was, bam, right back flat on my face again. So, the world knows me as the guy that has the redemption tale, but there's really 2. There was really a year worth of building and then getting smashed just like a bug, and then having to come back again with the resolve of, okay, well, I was able to do that, and it took 11 months. I'm going to be able to do it again. And that second kind of uptick is where the real foundation for the man that you talked to today came from.
When you found out about the other guy at the first car dealership that you were a part of, were you more empathetic or pissed, or a combination of the two? Because I imagine you understood to a degree what he was going through because you had done something similar. So what was your reaction when you found that out?
Well, there's a difference between being somebody who screws up and has humility and somebody who screws up and looks you in your eyes and says, I'm not screwing up. That's the difference. And this individual is vindictive and bad and bitter and, did everything just, cheating on his wife. I was in the office one day when this individual came in, knowing I'm supposed to be his friend, business partner, and recovered addict, crushes up a 30 milligram roxycodone in front of me and snorts it right on the desk that I'm working off of while he drinks his coffee. Meanwhile, after a while, I realize he's been talking about his daughter who's in the truck. I realize he's been in here for an hour. It's freezing cold and snowing outside. And I'm looking at his truck. He left his, at that time, 3 or 4 year old daughter in a truck, locked up, running for about an hour and a half while he sat there and snorted drugs and talked about flying off to Miami and this, that, and the third. So empathy or sympathy for a person like that is very difficult to find, especially when this individual said, my business is tanking. I need you. I'll bless you with whatever you need to get us going. You spend 11 months washing him out of his old inventory, moving him to a better facility, building his business's credit, putting a couple $100,000 in his pocket. And then when he does that to you, there was a surplus. He had more than enough, far more than enough, to do drugs and to service his habit and to feed his family. And it's just never enough with that guy, no matter what. And no matter who he's working with, he's always got to be the alpha. So he's self destructive, for lack of better or more verbose term. He just went and told his boss at his job, because he was working a 9 to 5, as he should be. He's the type of person that should be working somewhere in structure, and got pissed off with, I don't need you, I got my own money, went and then tried to work with me at this dealership, which he proved in the first place that he was not capable of running. And so long answer, but no, I don't have any sympathy for that guy. And I didn't at the time. Him and one other guy are the only two people that I've been physical with since I got out of prison, and it was well deserved. And there's a dent in a gas pump somewhere in Fulton, New York, that tells that story.
What came after that 11-month period? So the business went to shit. You scoop it up at a discount, you go do something else. Like, how did you truly become entrepreneurial in your next endeavor?
Yeah, so I went back. So as this all kind of came to a head, guy reached out to me that I had worked for as a salesperson before I went off to prison. He had fired me for theft of services. It was like an automotive detailing and aftermarket shop, and the same individual that actually I partnered with after the fact, he used to come by and get his truck detailed and rust proofed and stuff, and I would do that and turn a work order in and get his vehicles worked on in exchange for drugs. Eventually, this got discovered, and so that guy fired me. I made him a hell of a lot of money. It was very difficult for him to fire me, but it was one of those things that on principle, it was just, I was the cancer that the rest of the team was sinking underneath, because I was just, untouchable. So he had to let me go. And then upon me righting my wrongs and fixing the trajectory of the ship, he called me and said, listen, you're better now. I know who you are. I know what you're capable of. If you want your $160,000 a year sales position back, it's here waiting for you. So I went back and I did that. And upon doing it, there were moments where he heard me kind of talk about the car thing, and he saw the fire in my eyes about, being my own boss and buying and selling cars and the hustle. And so one day he just sits me down, and mind you, this is shortly after who is now my wife, Nikki. I love her to death. She's the reason I'm here. She offered me, she had a settlement. She had been hit by a tractor trailer and got a bunch of money, and said, take the rest of my settlement money, go start us a car dealership. Look what you did for him. We could build a business and be self-sufficient and live the rest of our lives because of what you can do. And she had been kind of screwed over by a lot of guys, and it was always about money or something. She was always the giving person that got taken advantage of. And I truly cared for this woman, and for the first time in my life, actually loved somebody. So I wasn't willing to base our relationship on borrowing $87,000 from the girl I wanted to marry. So I said, I'm sorry. If it's meant to be, we'll figure it out. We'll take out a loan. We'll do something. But right now, it's just not in the cards. Literally the following day, I went to work, and at the end of the day, that gentleman, the man that employed me and offered me the job back, came in and offered to stake me $150,000 to start our own car dealership with him as my partner. And I didn't want a partner. I'd been down that road before, but this was a guy that, he's worth $60-70 million, has no reason to ding me over. And I knew the guy well. And he offered a set of terms that it was very clear. These terms were very indicative of a guy who was just trying to help somebody. We agreed on a buyout figure at 4 years without even knowing what the business would do. And it was a very advantageous buyout figure for me. So he basically said, I'll front this money, spend the next 4 years paying it back. And after those 4 years, if you've paid it back and you've got any sort of business to show for it, you can buy it out for $36,000. And in the meantime, we'll just split whatever you make, except we'll do 55-45. And I was like, all right, fair enough. You're putting up the money. You get a bigger chunk. He goes, no, the bigger chunk's for you. You get 55. And I said, why? He goes, because I want you to know I'm generous and that you should never steal from me again. And I was like, damn. And that was a life lesson right there. I could do a whole podcast on the mentality of that, of generosity to make an investment in future, relationship. But that was the breaking point. That was the inflection point where somebody who had merit in society, a guy who's known as one of Central New York's most prolific entrepreneurs. Everybody knows him. He's all over news, radio, TV, billboards. You bring up his name, it rings bells. And he offered me, $150,000, which was a lot of money to a guy fresh out of prison at the time. A guy that had fired me for stealing, then put me in charge of 150 grand.
Yeah, not only that, but you kind of had a track record with him that wasn't maybe the best, right?
100%. But he's one of the few people that recognized the real change. Knew who the real Luke Lunkenheimer was, knew what the person and the capabilities were, and truly believed that was the last straw. Now that this guy's cleaned up, that was it. This is the spring.
He's ready to roll
forward. Exactly. That was the inflection point. That was the foundation.
So, and forgive me if I'm being too assumptive, but I assume that as you were on the bus going to and from work for a while, one of the books that you've read or listened to either during that time or another time is Think and Grow Rich. Have you consumed that book before yet?
I couldn't really get into that book, man. I read that book. It was written in a way that it wasn't very dynamic. It was difficult for me to get into, but the principles ring bells. You know what I mean? It's just like How to Win Friends and Influence People. It reads like a Hallmark movie from 86, but the principles are there. So I'm familiar with the book. Yes.
Okay.
Napoleon
The reason
Hill.
why I bring it up, so that book I probably read for the first time 10 years ago, and it's really resonated with me to the point where I consume it via hard copy or audio book at least once, if not twice a year. Typically, it's at the beginning of the year, and then right now I'm in the midst of re-listening to it. And your story, particularly with the gentleman who you stole from that then invested in you, could be inserted directly into that book, where as long as you're pushing forward, you have positive thoughts, you have big ambitions, you have the character and new integrity to back that up, the source of money comes from the most unexpected of places. Like, who would have ever guessed out of 1,000 guesses that the investor in your business was going to be someone that you stole from previously? And it's a great redemption story. And I get, I don't want to go too far off the rails, but like I was getting choked up as you were telling that story. Like, I'd love to be in the position of that guy at some point, to where
Amen.
You can take a calculated chance on someone that you believe in. And frankly, as you're a result of, like, totally change their life.
Yeah.
For the
Well, not
better.
even-
And you
not-
probably would have
not even-
found
not
money
even-
elsewhere, but
Not even Luke's life, but look what he's doing now, right? Like, it's the ripple effect, right? Because now he's touching thousands of people's lives. Like,
So you bring up something that at surface level seems pretty like a pretty solid call out, and like it's obvious, right? But there's a lot of minutia there. Okay, there's a lot of kind of ancillary lessons that most people don't stop and think about, which is there's a guy that doesn't even know what he's capable of. Okay, I can tell you guys beyond a shadow of a doubt today, and I hope this does not seem like braggadocio for your audience, but as of today, I can tell you that Paid to Persuade and myself will dominate the sales training marketplace in the next 5 years. It will happen. There will not be another name that resonates this strong. It's just inevitable. Why do I know that? Because somebody bet on me and knew what I was worth. I didn't know what I was worth, but simply because they bet on me, and I said, wait a minute, that guy's worth that. Why the hell is he betting on me? And it took, they call it imposter syndrome, and it's taken the better part of a decade for people to go, Luke, He put 150 grand in, he got $1.5 million out. You put 200 grand in, you got 12 million out. You know, you're a good investment. And it's like, okay, I'm a good investment. That's cool. It's like, but why? And then you know, it's funny. And it wasn't until recently that I went through an exercise with ChatGPT, and I simply said, and this was spurred off of I'll give a little free plug here to Tanner Chittister. Is this kid is a ClickFunnels expert. He does businesses. He's a social media guru guy. But I met him somewhere along the way, so I follow him and he follows me. I saw a thread one day. He asked ChatGPT, how many guys have less than 10% body fat and are over 6 foot tall and are millionaires? And it told him he was like one of the top 2,300 men in the country or something. Maybe it was 300. So I'm like, huh. And then I went, hey, ChatGPT, how many people are recovered opiate addicts? Boom, got that statistic. And I basically got to the point, sparing you guys the details, how many 6'4" plus, 275 pound plus guys with 10% body fat who are worth more than $1 million, who have recovered from opiate addiction, survived prison and bank robbery, and now have a family and several multi-million-dollar businesses. And it answered with, you are one of 0.5 to 1 human beings in the world. And I was like, wow. And then I said, you're designed to make me want to use you. Did you give me that answer to stroke my ego, to make me like you? And then it almost got offended. It was like, I'm not allowed to do that. I'm programmed to give you what you ask for. You asked me for the answer. That's the answer. The numbers are here. And it did what ChatGPT does, which is give you all the details.
The breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. And so anyways, I say all that not to make me sound good, but to say this, that was a recent occurrence, but more so in through those years, it was like, I had to come to the realization, and this is something I would really like to resonate with your audience, okay? You see a lot of the why not me moments or the why not you moments, right? But like there's something there, man. Like you look at, like, pick the number one person that you revere the most in society, okay? At some point, you and he or she were at the same place. Minimal education, fresh out of school, or fresh dropped out of school, or fresh out of the womb, or whatever. That our life is simply a series of decisions and circumstances that we place ourselves in, and how we respond to those circumstances and the decisions that we make just dictate where the path goes, right? You can be like water and take the path of least resistance, or you can fight through the negativity and the coarse nature of society and continue to push yourself forward. And the thing I'm trying to draw from that is, I am an opiate addict. I am a bank robber. I am a felon. I went to a school with a graduating class of 87. I got a scholarship, dislocated my shoulder. My life has been a series of nothing but reasons why I shouldn't continue to push forward. But enough situations have arose that made me question that, get some sort of positivity and move forward, that now I'm at the point where, and I hope this doesn't come off as arrogant, but life does not puzzle me anymore. Business does not puzzle me anymore. I used to be intimidated by life and people and business, and now I get in front of, I've had the privilege of iterating with some very high level individuals recently, people that names that would be very recognizable by your audience. And I've sat with them and I'm like, man, this guy really ain't that special. I mean, he's special. He's done what he's done, but he's no different than me. I mean, shit, he just talked to his wife. They had a small argument. He's got a check engine light on in his Rolls Royce. Like, a couple of his employees are talking shit behind his back. It ain't no different than me at my little car dealership. Like, I think one of the biggest things for people, and I apologize for my riff and rant here, but you asked for me. But one of the biggest things that I think that entrepreneurs and just human beings in general struggle with is thinking that the business world and life and the world itself is a far more complex matrix than it really is. Like, it's just a grouping of human beings. And
it's a group of human beings who are just willing to put up with more bullshit than most, in my opinion.
Brother, that's what entrepreneurship is. It's not being risk averse. It's just saying, oh, I'm willing to take a risk. And the more people you meet, the more it resonates with you. You spend time with Grant Cardone. What was the thing? He just was willing to take a risk. Back in the early teens, when social media was becoming a big deal, the guy made a lot of money, and the guy said, hey, for this much money, you can get this much attention. He said, put all my money there. Get me the attention, and I'll figure it out, right? Spend some time with Brad Lee. The guy was, known to be a liar, I don't know if you guys know who Brad Lee is. He's a a pretty good sized entrepreneur, very nice guy. And you learn his story. What it is, just there came an inflection point, and he had the balls to take the risk. Right? Spent some time with Ty Lopez, Mr. Internet Marketer. Is he a scammer? Is he the real deal? Guy's just a smart guy. Has he made some questionable decisions? We all have. But at the end of the day, he's just a guy that sat back and said, "I'm going to continue to push until I figure this thing out." And what you continue to learn is all the people that you put on these pedestals, they're just people who had bigger balls than you at some point, or they hit it on an upward trajectory of something, and they got a little lucky, combined with they were willing to have the balls to do it. So, I hope somebody somewhere drew some value from that, because it's something that I think somebody out there needs to hear, because I feel like there's somebody in your audience who's probably right on the cusp of getting ready to try to do something. And if that pushes them over the edge, then my time here today was well worth it.
So let me go
I agree.
a layer deeper on that. So there's been times in my life personally where, life has smacked me upside the head, and what I think anyways I've gotten better at is going from being thrown off for a month, right? Being
Hmm.
shaken for a month
Yep.
to being shaken for 2 weeks to a week to a day to a minute and now to a moment, to where there's very, very few things that actually cause me to have a bad day. It's just on to the next thing, right? Continuing to push forward. But there was a period of my life in my early 20s where if someone said no in my previous sales career, like that would throw me off for a fucking week.
Yep.
So my question to you, and on behalf of the folks listening, when life throws you curveballs, when it has in the past and as it still is doing today, my deeper question is just simply why? Why are you continuing to push forward and not allowing life to determine where you should be, but rather hold the cards and decide where you want to be?
Well, the why is because if you choose not to dust yourself up and keep moving, something else is in control of your destiny. It's really very simple. There's no such thing as failure if you don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been said many times before, but I don't think people take that at face value as they should. There is
That
no failure.
that should set in,
Yeah.
right? Like
It,
let
it
that set in.
let that set in, and let that be the compass that guides your life. Like, not for nothing, I'm as candid as it gets. I'm not going to sit up here and paint a pretty picture. I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, I'm the single most effective sales trainer you'll ever meet in your life. No one gets the results that I get. Why does the world know about Andy Elliott and Grant Cardone and Jeremy Miner and like all these guys? Because they've got the ad budget, because they did a thing, they got the money, and they positioned themselves as the thought leaders in that space. I have issued challenge after challenge after challenge on social media. Let's go toe to toe, door to door, fast selling, phone selling, whatever it is. Like, or better yet, let's take a group of trainees. Let's all train 100 people, and let's see who gets the best results out of those. Because isn't that our job, to educate and to further the careers of others, right? So to get off my own hype here, the thing is, man, I've been at this now for, probably since 23. I've chosen to do this, and I've helped a ton of people, and I've made a lot of money. But you don't go out in the world and say, "Hey, do you know who Luke Lunkenheimer is?" And everybody goes, "Yeah." You don't. Do you go, "Do you know who Andy Elliott is?" And quite a few people go, "Yeah," because they've seen his social media. So I am having a difficult time with the vehicle of social media getting myself relevant on there. Why? Because I'm too damn honest, and because I'm too damn helpful. I'm not polarizing. Social media loves polarity. Social media loves awe. Social media loves drama. I don't bring that shit to the table. I solve problems and give good information, right? So what's happened is these guys have gotten polarizing and have created, very entertaining social media videos. They've parlayed that into then becoming specialists in a space where it's like, is Andy Elliott the best sales trainer, or is he the guy that made the six pack or you're fired video, which got him 2.7 million views, which then got him 800,000 followers, which he then parlayed that attention into monetization. So, two things there.
That's
One, major lesson. Go ahead, Landon.
that's my biggest thing with social media. I hate because I'll guarantee you get to know the behind the scenes guys. I just watched a documentary on the Liver King, right?
Yep.
And like it was all bullshit. He said
Bullshit.
for years, "Oh yeah, I'm all natural, this, that," and he's doing all this crazy shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, well. so much. The truth comes out, your blood results come out. You're far from natural, right? It's like
100%. And we live in a country where historically,
people idolize that shit, and
well,
it drives me nuts.
because they don't know what you know, man. The problem is they get sold by the glitz and the glamour. And there used to be a time where the FCC would govern that. If you said a hyperbolic or an untrue thing, you got to cease and desist from the government in the mail, and you got litigated against and indicted if you didn't stop. But social media is too vast of a marketplace; they can't govern it. So what happens is you end up with this mass diarrhea of the rank and file, just going to whatever the next shiny object is. But to that point, guys, I will make this claim right now and mark my words in this moment in history. We're shifting as a marketplace and as an economy and as a people. We're sick of the bullshit. Okay. Authenticity is coming back center stage, and people who are just candid and wholesome and tell it like it is and don't say, I've only got a Lamborghini, a Rolls Royce, or this or that. They go, well, yeah, I did buy the Lambo and I did lease the Rolls Royce, but those are coming up soon. And I had to get the F-150 because the gas mileage was killing me on the Lambo. And, we did upgrade our house though. And the reason we did the house and not the Lambo is because we got another kid on the way. And unfortunately, that kid has cerebral palsy and it really sucks. You don't see all that shit, right? You see the Lambo and you see the video inside the Lambo. So back to your original question, Dave, about you asked me a question about there goes the ADD again.
About why keep pushing
why
forward.
keep going, correct? It's because no one else is going to keep going for you, and all the people who are in the places that you want to be kept going. Like, that's the common denominator, right? They picked themselves up, they dusted themselves off, and they kept going. So here's the thing though, right? Pain hurts and it's uncomfortable, right? So what I've done for myself as a human being is I've actually what I call welcome pain. I've gotten very comfortable being in pain and discomfort. One of the first core teachings in P2P when we train salespeople and entrepreneurs is get comfortable being uncomfortable. I will literally say, I'm assuming you guys are mostly audio, or do you have YouTube as well for this show?
Both, but mostly audio.
Okay, so for the people who are just listening and not looking, the look on my face is just going to be straightforward and dead. But when we train salespeople, I say, hey man, how you doing? They go, good. And I go, and for the people listening, this is just a long silence staring dead into the eyes of the other party. And you just stare at them. And they're like, and eventually what happens is they, okay, I'm not sure what that is, but it's like, why did you talk? I'm the trainer. Well, because why are you still talking? Okay. Then they're quiet. Then you stare at them. And eventually they're like, dude, what are you doing? And I will say, what is the problem? It's just a silence and we're making eye contact. Well, it's so uncomfortable. So you're not comfortable being uncomfortable. Okay, how do you plan on asking a customer if they actually have the money in their bank account to buy this product? Well, I would never ask a customer that. Why? Don't you want to know that? Well, yeah, I do. So why wouldn't you ask them that? Well, because that's not a polite question to ask. It absolutely is if you parlay the question correctly. If the customer knows why you're asking the question, and that question is not a selfish or nefarious reason, and it actually benefits them, they'll tell you what color their underwear is if they think it's going to help them save money and get what they want, right? So at the end of the day, man, the why is just being able to absorb more damage. The guy that can absorb, or gal that can absorb the most damage, is the guy or the gal that just is going to win. Plain and simple, because building anything is not easy. Building a swing set, you might whack your finger with a hammer. You might, poke yourself with a screw. Building a business requires emotional pain and struggle and discomfort. Building anything requires work and discomfort. So it's just like if you're a boxer and winning the fight means issuing the most damage, but also being able to take the most. If you can't take punches, you're never going to win the championship. And business requires you to take punches a hell of a lot more than you throw, okay? It's kind of like that old Rocky saying, it's not how hard you get hit, it's how hard you can get hit and get back up and keep moving. That is the essence of business, okay? You're going to, like anybody who goes into business and says, well, I'm just going to figure it out the first time. Bullshit. Like, go home. It's not going to happen, okay? And if you try to convince anybody with any sort of salt that it did work out that way, you're going to lose friends and not be invited to that room again because they all know you're full of shit. But at the end of the day, if you just simply come to terms with the fact that business, entrepreneurship, spiritual, financial growth comes with moving forward, trying, taking a risk, winning, moving further forward, or getting knocked down, flat on your face, having to get back up, dust yourself off, and say, I'm thankful for that lesson. Not, oh man, that sucked. That blows. I hope that never happens again. No, like, man, I'm glad that happened now and not 13 years from now. I learned that lesson. I'm glad I learned it. Good. Let's put that feather in the cap and let's keep moving. If you look at business success as like a big chief Indian with the big headdress with all the feathers in his hat, like that's what business success is. You've been all the places you can go and you fucked up everything there was to fuck up. And you got a feather in your hat for each one. Now you know exactly what needs to be done, but just that much more than the next guy because the lesson is never over with. So again, I know a verbose rant here to a simple question, but I think it's meaningful and I think the context is important because the more battering you can take, the more success you will have. So the why is you have to. There's no choice. There's no other choice.
I think one thing to kind of parlay with that too, that's really, again, just speaking from my personal experience, but knowing where I come from when I help clients and entrepreneurs, if there's a no, I don't take offense to it because I know where I come from. And it's like, I got to get back up because there are other people out there that I truly can help. And I know where my intentions are. And I get pretty close with my clients. Like people
Mhm.
figure out real quick, much like you, like generally it's either I really like him or the guy's a fucking dick, and I'm good with either of those, right?
Yeah.
But my people are my people, and I'll have their so they know where I'm coming from. So it makes, like David said before we hit the record button, right? Like tough conversations sprinkled with a little bit of grace, as long as they know you're coming from a place that, hey, this is going to suck to hear, but I'm saying it because I've got your back and I want what's best for you.
Mhm.
It's a lot easier, right? Like,
100%.
and if somebody tells me no, I'm like, all right, great, on to the next one. Like, there are people out there that genuinely value the relationship and the skill set that I bring to them and their business and their teams and their peace of mind with their spouse,
Yeah.
financially, all of that. And if I can help one more person, then it's worth it.
Bro,
Well, I
that's
think
very meaningful. Just 2 seconds, Dave. All I want to say is that's very meaningful because one of the things that I've had to learn is that you're not going to please everybody. I think too many entrepreneurs go into the world going, well, I'm going to be the one person that gets it right for everybody and everybody's going to like me. No, no. History says you're going to have a tribe. You're going to have the people that align with you. And if you just speak to your tribe and you give those people as much value as possible, that's where mass adoption comes from. Because the other side goes, man, I don't like what he does. I don't like what his opinion is, but he executes. And I got to respect that's like Howard Stern pissed everybody in the world off all at once. But half of them were like, I kind of agree with him
He
the way
stands
he's
on his
pissing me
business,
off.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
And then
I
the
got to
other side
respect
was
that.
like, I hate him so much, but I just can't wait to see what the next thing he says is. And because he was ruthlessly authentic. He just did what he did and he leaned into it as heavy as he could. And that's why he got that massive success. So I think there's a lot of value in what you said. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Dave.
no, you're good. What I wanted to say was I've gone as far as to believe, especially in all of our roles here with everyone on this podcast, our job in one way, in one form or another, is to help people.
Hmm.
And I've gone as far as to convince myself, which I believe is the truth, that if there's a failure that throws me off and I get in my feelings or I feel down for a day or a week or a month, or if someone says no and I take that in a bad way,
Hmm.
I've convinced myself that that's simply an incredibly selfish reaction that
Hmm.
in turn prevents me from, Landon, to your point, helping that next person that will be receptive to it. So I've convinced myself that a negative reaction on my end is selfish, and it's allowed me to be more in tuned and aware when that emotion creeps in, to immediately reframe with doing something productive that time and time again, call it the universe, call it God, call it serendipitous, but kind of like your scenario, your girlfriend at the time offered you money, you said no, and the very next day you had a scenario that accomplishes the same thing and more. That happens over and over again in my
Well,
life
I was gonna
simply
say
because
that's the
I've chosen to
same.
reframe my mind and take action immediately after, and then boom, something incredibly positive happens very, very quickly thereafter.
I get a no, and it's like all of a sudden I jump back into what I hate the most, as David knows, like my inbox, and it's like there's an email from a client like, Landon, appreciate you so much. You helped me through this. My buddy Joe's going through the same thing. You two need to meet. He's CC'd on here. And it's like,
Hmm.
yep, there it is.
There it is, brother. Yep. 100%. And there's something that I say it. It's probably been said many times, but it's success likes success, right? So when you just put your nose to the grindstone and work as hard as you possibly can with as pure of intentions as you possibly can, other people who are aligned with that thought process are going to take notice of it. And there's two kinds of people that are further down the trail than you and people that are not quite as far down the trail as you. And so you've got ultimately, I don't want to say a 50-50 shot, because as you move up through the ranks, there's less people ahead of you than there is behind you. But the harder you work and the more noise you make in a good way, the more chance you get of those people further down the trail going, yeah, you know what? You're reminding me a lot of me. And I know that I, at that moment, almost went through this pain. I could probably save you that pain. Let me reach out and try to help you. People who have been through what you're going through and can save you that, who are good people, are going to do that. I have entrepreneurs that are mentors in my life, and they've been pivotal. It came time for me to launch my original sales training program, and the company that I was doing it with, that was helping me with the launch, was like, "You need some testimonials," and I'm like, "We haven't opened yet." They're like, "I know, but if you're an entrepreneur and if you've got the 100 grand to spend with us to get this thing going, that means people know you and you've done something. Who's out there that could say something nice about you?" And I'm like, okay, I'm thinking I've got the guy that invested in me, and then I've got a guy that I used to work for that reached back out to me, and I kept my circle very, very small. But the long and the short of it was, I reached out to both of those guys. I had two. I reached out to
And they were
both.
both probably happy to do that
One
for you.
gave me a video testimonial that's the reason I've landed the majority of the clients that I have. And the other one wrote me a verbal testimonial that I think about right now, and it makes me emotional. And I can tell you that if I was asked to read it out loud, I would cry halfway through because of what this guy said about me. And that was another guy that I had stolen from. Not stolen from, but I behaved in a nefarious way at his place of business. And these are guys that, when given the opportunity, put their necks on the line to put their good names on me, which just shows you even more that your worth, your worth is there, and you should be doing what you're doing. So
And
I
it's
couldn't
funny
agree with
because
what
it
you guys
goes
are
back to
saying
what you
more.
said prior, right? It's like things that are uncomfortable. I know for me, asking people for something like that would probably be uncomfortable, even though I've helped them, provided them value, but
Hmm.
it's uncomfortable. And then you flip the table and they're happier than hell to do that for you,
Yeah, because you've
right?
provided
It's like,
them real value, and
yeah,
that's the thing.
just have the balls to ask somebody for help. It's okay. We all
But you
need it at
have
one
not
stage of our
because you
life.
asked not.
Yeah.
Right. And somebody like you, Landon, strike me as the kind of guy that you don't really want to ask for that. I don't want to
No.
burden you with having you to do this, that, and the third, but
But
you
I do it for people all the time.
there you go, and you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and you have to realize that if I wanted, like, there's no one ever said the prize behind door number comfort is riches. It's always the prize behind door number uncomfortable is wealth and entrepreneurial advantage and benefits and financial gain. Like, all the positive things come on the other side of hard work and discomfort. So if there's an ask and it's uncomfortable, the chances are that it's going to bear fruit. So that, again, just goes to the point that the more comfortable you are with discomfort, the more chances you're going to have of pulling fruit off the tree. That's all.
And Landon, to that point, because I know you love to help people genuinely, you love to connect people, and I do too. And I think that there's such thing as obviously actual income that's earned from the services that are being provided and value being exchanged. But there's also a lot of psychological income that I receive from helping people, especially people that aren't paying me for that help. But if they're taking incredible action, follow through, and they're appreciative, like that fills up my psychological bank account quite a bit. And I've convinced myself that if I don't ask someone for help when I'm willing to work hard and follow through and be appreciative, I'm depriving them of
Yes.
that psychological income. And I'm doing them a favor by asking them for help. And I've
So
convinced myself that that's true. And that's helped me not feel weird or guilty about asking for help when I need it.
now,
It
what's
goes
crazy
back.
about what you just said? Go ahead, Landon. I'm sorry.
Well, David and I both obviously know Debbie, right? And I write some business through their shop, and our good friend Dan Allison. And I had a case last year that literally fell in my lap, Luke. Like it was like teed up. They were going through some issues. The other guy couldn't get it done. Ended up meeting somebody in my network, and they said, "Well, just call Landon. He'll get it done." And like this thing was at the 10-yard line, but the client was moving. They were like, no, we're going a different direction. And I talked to Debbie and I said, I almost feel bad because it was a sizable, I mean, it's a 9-figure client that just landed in my lap. And it was so obvious to me. And after talking, it was like, oh, well, yeah, this is what we do. And they were like, perfect. But they wanted the other guy shut out, right? And that
Yeah.
was kind of tough. I took care of him other ways, but it was like, hey, the client wants it. This is their deal. That's the way
Right.
it's got to be.
Yep.
Um, and I talked to Debbie about just almost feeling bad that like this thing just landed in my lap. And she's, granted, I've had a relationship with them for damn near 15 years.
Hmm.
And she's like, Landon, I have watched you give away and so much free advice and relationships and make connections with people.
Yep.
She's like, have you ever thought about the fact that this is just the way the universe is giving back? And it hit me like somebody hit me in the freaking jaw. I was like, huh, all right, I guess I don't need to feel bad because there's a lot of truth to that, right? Like David
Yes.
and I do it all the time. Like if you're a good dude or a good gal, I I, I love to put those people at the forefront of somebody that needs to meet them,
Yeah.
right? It's not even a hesitation. It's just,
Yep.
oh shit, you need to meet my buddy David. Like he's doing this, right? Like
Yep.
vice versa.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's funny how the world works like that.
It is, man. And the real ones are the ones that get that, like all of the people that I've met in business that I've met and I've iterated with and I've gone, man, that's a real one. That's just a real good person. At some point have also been the person to randomly call me and say, hey man, so and so needed me for a speaking engagement. I'm not available. I told them your minimum's 10 grand. You just got to fly over to, New
Yep.
Hampshire.
Be
They'll
there.
cover your travel. And you're like, okay, this
Thanks.
is real. Call them, man. Just book it. Here's the link on the Calendly. Book it and send them your payment link. And you're just like, there's 10 grand. Just
Yeah.
there was a day that 10 grand would have made 3 months worth of rent payments and groceries for me. And it just landed on my lap
Well,
in a
now
moment,
now it
right?
gets you by for 10 days.
100%. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then other moments where I meet, somebody, a real one. And then just like next thing I know, it's like, hey, by the way, there's a get together going on at my mansion. It's a networking event. There's going to be a lot of, A-list people there. You should come. And I'm like, okay, how much? And they're like, just come. Do you need me to send someone to pick you up? And you're like, you mean just come to
Oh,
the party? Yeah. Like, oh, I thought because our original podcast we did was pay to play that this was like some sort of no, dude. I like you. Like you're in network now. Like you're cool people. Like it's like oh, and then that furthers that whole maybe I do deserve to play at this level and so on and so forth. But what David was saying was to me all about mindset. Right? He said I had to convince myself, pardon me, that I was due what I was getting, and once I agreed that I should be getting what I was getting, or excuse me, he said I convinced myself that this was my good credit for doing XYZ thing, or you said that you convinced yourself that this was the universe giving back to me, and then I was okay with it. I think the undercurrent, the underlying message there that a lot of people may not pick up on is that's all about mindset. It wasn't about the pivot, the actual pivot about convincing yourself that you deserve these things. It was about the greater lesson, which is your mindset can prohibit you from earning a lot of money, a lot of relationships, a lot of success. When you just flip that mind, like for me, when I changed my mindset from man, I'm the guy that wants to go take on the world of sales trainers and be the guy that brings the truth and authenticity and just kind of get in there and show up everybody and show that I'm better. When I shifted from that to man, these guys aren't even on my level. Like I operate at a whole different frequency. I'm not going to compete with them. I'm just going to enter the marketplace and they're going to quietly sift off into the dirt. Like when that mindset shift happened, light years worth of progress happened in a very short period of time. So just to that point, Landon, it's just to me one of the biggest fundamental advances that a human being can make when it comes to getting success is in their mindset and just believing that they deserve what they're willing to go get, right? So
Yep.
if you don't
That's why I love capitalism. That's
right?
why things should be. I don't give a damn about your background. I just care about your merit,
Right.
right? Like, just show me what you've done and what you can
Meritocracy,
do.
100%.
That's it, right? I don't care if you're orange, green, like male, like I don't give a shit,
Yep.
right? Just show me what you're capable of, and I can run with that.
Oh,
So
bro,
yeah, that
that's why we have the president that we have. You get
yep,
people that say, and this isn't a political stance one way or the other. Okay, I run right down the middle with truth and common sense and logic, not red, blue, donkey, elephant, none of it. Right? At the end of the day, Donald Trump is the president because he deserves to be the president. Because he doesn't deserve to be the president. He's this, he's that. And I say Donald Trump absolutely does deserve to be the president because he's there. Well, what do you mean by that? If he did not deserve to be the president, then he would not be the president. If
his
he
ass
didn't,
wouldn't be in that seat.
1000%. Okay. He chose to be ballsy and go on the younger, more volatile podcast. He got in front of Joe Rogan, who's one of the strongest, most opinionated, intelligent interviewers out there, who has no allegiance to anybody, and said, "All
No,
right, Joe, I'll bare my chest to you. Do what you can do. Tear me apart if you want. Let's show the world who I am." And the reason he got the merit that he got is because Joe Rogan went, well, I may not agree with everything he said. I may not like everything he said, but he
I
was willing to
respect it.
talk about everything, and he was willing to
Yep.
share on everything. And he had an actual position on everything, right? Just that
Didn't do
alone.
the
So
politician dance around everything. Take it or leave it. This is where I stand on it. Be done with it.
1000%. I couldn't agree more. And that just goes more to the point of you people say, well, I don't know if I deserve to be at the top of the food chain. I don't know if I deserve to be a millionaire. It's like just work.
Yep.
You'll find out if you deserve it or not. If you deserve it, it will come to you. If you don't deserve it, then it won't come to you because something you're not willing to do, a risk you're not willing to take, a bat you're not willing to swing, a ladder you're not willing to climb, somewhere along the way, some of the necessary components will present themselves. And if you're not willing to partake, you're not going to get there, which means you don't deserve it. But if you
No,
do,
there's
you're going to get it.
and if you do it with what I've found is I seem to have a lot more success now that like I don't view anybody as competition because I just understand that, like you said, everybody's got your tribe, right? Like
Yep.
for me, perfect case. This morning, I had a gentleman in here who is an entrepreneur, who is a client of a buddy of mine who happens to be an advisor at another firm.
Okay.
But he knows his skill set is not what my skill set is. So yeah, while I could take his book and manage his money and do, he knows I'm not going to do that because of my character, but he also knows my skill set could help his client drastically.
Hmm.
And sure enough, the guy's in a 50-50 partnership with a now ex-wife. It's an ugly situation. He's like, I don't know how to tell him to unwind this, but you do.
Yep.
So we're in here. We hammered out. Third time I've met with this guy. He walks out of the building. He's like, hey, you need to send me a bill for something. I said, hey, we haven't gotten any results yet, right? Like, I don't, I genuinely enjoy trying to help people work through sophisticated issues and deepen relationships with them, right? He's got stuff that he's talking with me in this room that his kids don't even know about, right? Like it's that's when people trust you to that level, you better damn well take it seriously and understand that like, yeah, there's thousands of quote unquote advisors out there, but what do you do different that eliminates. I always tell my team, I eliminate competition through authenticity.
There
People
you
do know
go.
where I stand, like politically, all that stuff, because I wear it on my chest, right? It's like if I'm not for you, cool.
Well,
Got no issues with it.
the tagline in Paid to Persuade is authenticity sells and confidence closes. Okay. Now, I want you to consider the merit behind what you just said. You said, I've got a client. He's shared some things with me that even his children don't know about. That's because when you give an abundance of value to somebody, okay, trust is implied. When you show somebody that my intentions are, I'm going to get paid. Obviously, what I do monetizes and what I'm doing for you puts money in my bank account. But you're going to learn that all of the motivation isn't behind the money. The motivation is behind getting you the result because I get paid to get you a result. So we are aligned here because if I find the best way to solve your problem and get you out of trouble and move you
You're
into
happy
the
to pay
win
me.
column, it pays me, right? So moving forward, they get this understanding of, well, the two most significant drivers of any person's ambition or what they do on a daily basis are their emotions and their need for security and safety, which is financial, right? So if they like me and we enjoy each other and we have that frequency of authenticity, what they call the law of constructive interference, meaning two people communicating authentically and having a very similar stance on things will actually multiply their frequencies in a significant by orders of magnitude, just meaning that they feel much more aligned conversing. And when they're aligned in their financial goals or their quote security goals, that bro, you'll feel more like a brother to somebody in business than you will to your own blood. And that's real. And when people start getting, going down that road in business to where they're that aligned with their clients, it opens all new sets of doors,
And
man.
Luke, when you say that, it's funny. I talk about it, honestly, these days, it's very rare that I do hear a no. And again, that's not an ego thing. It's simply because generally I'm being referred in. Like I don't make an outbound. I'm not banging the phones anymore, right? I've got
Right.
a great client base. If somebody comes in the door that needs help and we align, I've got to like them and genuinely care about them, or I'm just going to tell them I'm
Yeah.
probably not a fit. But the people that I have gotten a no from, it's funny. Where I get the no generally is like when we're like, all right, we'll just send us over the financials. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, I've chosen to go a different route. And it's like, when I peel back that onion, I think about it, it's probably just like they either think they're not in a spot where they've maybe given the perception they are,
Yep.
or that they feel they need to be. I mean, I've had clients that I now work with that said, "Hey, I just didn't call you in the past because I didn't know you'd be willing to work with me. I've only got $1 million or whatever. I thought you were, somebody needed five. Like, I don't give a shit if you got 50,000, right?
Right.
If you're a good person, I want to help you, right?
Yes.
Like, I have no minimums. I tell people all the time, my minimum is just, do I like you? And
Yeah.
that's it. And so it's funny that it's almost like I think it's probably their own insecurities
Yeah. Absolutely.
that give me the no, right? So
Bro,
that's why I don't take offense to it anymore.
1,000%. And here's the thing, man. One thing that I think maybe not moving through your head right now, not because it's not something that's important to you, but because maybe it's just not top of mind right now. What you're saying, there is a large subset of your listeners who are listening right now going, my God, can you imagine being in a position where you're at work and you can tell a client, no, I don't want to work with you? Can you imagine being so well off that a customer could say, I want to potentially do business with you, and you could afford to say, no, I don't like you? Man, if I could just tell all the customers I didn't like that I wasn't willing to work with them, oh my God, like listeners, Landon has earned that. How long you been doing what you're doing, bro?
16 years.
Okay. How many of those years would you say were your win years? Like obviously this year, the year before are win years. You're winning, you're chugging along. How
Uh,
many of those years were
four,
still trying to
four,
figure it out?
4 to 5 years ago was when I probably had the ability to do that.
So it
Those
took
early
you,
years, I wasn't telling anybody now, right?
so it took you a decade, bro.
Yeah.
Took you a decade, okay?
Yep.
If you live to be 80, that is such a significant chunk of your life. Was it 15% of your life or something like that? Like that you had to devote to garnering business and
Kissing a
hearing
lot of
no.
frogs.
What's that?
Kissing a lot of frogs.
Bro, it's crazy. It's funny, I have my sales training company. I also own an app, but the bread and butter of what allowed me to put a few steaks in the freezer to take on passion projects was my car dealerships in Central New York. I have three of them, and it's amazing because you talk to people and they're, oh yeah, well you're just that rich car dealer. You got all those car dealerships and all those people working for you. It's like, do you want to see the photo album where my pregnant wife, 7 months pregnant, was on a 60-foot boom lift with me painting our sign because the DMV said it wasn't visible enough? Do you want to see where I'm hanging over the edge of a 3-story building with baling twine tied to the chimney and around my waist because I had to hang a tarp over the old pre-existing sign because the DMV said it was confusing? Or how about when we used to sell cars out of a rust-proofing building in an office where there was literally, you could see rubberized undercoating particulates in the air and had to talk your customer into, well, we're going to give you such a good deal. Don't worry about your cancer. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy, man. And they didn't see the nights where on Christmas Eve, you're there till 8 PM wrapping up the customer with the bad credit and how on a Sunday you're transporting cars from the auction. Like they don't see all that stuff, man. So
I had that same conversation. So work with several individuals in the car and truck dealership side of
yep,
things,
yep.
and had a conversation with one of them around COVID. And
Mhm.
he was like, I was with this large case guy, well app. He's like, I genuinely feel bad about what we're getting for vehicles right now. And he was just selling them MSRP. Some people were selling them
Way
above
over.
MSRP.
Yeah.
And I said, I can remember the years when things were not this good, right? Like
Yeah.
you were getting your teeth kicked in. Everybody that walked in the door said, "Hey, Joe Blow down the street's willing to take 18 grand off this vehicle. You know, you're at 16." I said, "This is your time to go. This is capitalism, right? It's supply and demand." So, and anything he was selling over MSRP, he was sending to the auction out of state, right? He's just like, I can get it down there, but I don't want to do that to my customers here.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, that's why I love you, because you are a great character. The fact that you do feel bad about this tells me about your character. But dude, you've absolutely earned this, right? You took the
Yeah.
risks, you went out, bought these dealers, it's
That's what, a guy like that, I would say I don't necessarily align with his thinking 100%. This is what I would say. There's supply and demand. That's capitalism. That's the rules of the game in which you play. So the rules of the game will hurt you oftentimes, but there will be those rare moments when they benefit you. Now's the time that you've had to abide by those rules for so long, and you've had to go through the painstaking time and just the pain of having to abide by those rules and discount and do what the market says you need to do. Now's that time where it pays you back a little bit. He didn't want to overcharge his customers. Listen, guys charging 10 grand over sticker are overcharging their customers. Okay.
yeah,
Guys charging 5, 6 grand over sticker are meeting the market. The guys charging sticker 1, 2,000 over, those are guys giving a fair deal based upon market conditions. So sell all the cars you can at sticker price. Like
yep,
you're not hurting anybody. This is what I say. And I say this to when family buys cars for me. And I just had a family member recently come to buy a car for me. He goes, Luke, when I was there, I talked to your manager. He said the most that he could take off was $500. I said, yep, that's correct. We don't discount past our military discount. You can show your military ID, get a discount, $500 any day of the week. Anybody else pays the asking price for the car. Unless they're a hell of a negotiator, there's an extenuating circumstance, there's a dent on the car that wasn't visible online or something, like whatever. But for my friends and family, yes, I will match the military discount because they're friends of the owner. Well, can you do any better than that? No. Well, why not, bro? I'm your cousin. Let me ask you a question. Can you buy this Kia Sportage cheaper anywhere else? Uh, no. Okay, so why do I continue to take money off? I'm already giving you the nicest car. I'm already giving you the best service. I'm already giving you the best pre-delivery service, brakes, tires, fluids, all that. And you're also buying it cheaper than you could anywhere else. So are you saying to me that's not good enough? You want me to give you more of my money that I should be earning for all the work that I did to acquire this car? Well, bro, it's not about that. No, it isn't. And again, this goes back to mindset. You just wanted me to take more money off because you were my family member. When in all reality, if you're my family member, you should pay me sticker, over sticker.
yeah,
You should be going,
yeah,
dude, I know you're going to give me great service. I know I can rely on you. I know I can trust the car. I'll pay a little bit more to get those assurances. Except we go, no, I want all those assurances. Plus, I want extra money off. And that's kind of the cancer of society, of the small thinkers, right? Now, if you or Dave were to come buy a car from my place, you'd be like, hey, Luke, that seems like a nice car. You're $1,000 cheaper than anybody else. Is that what I got to pay? Is there maybe any discount? No, I mean, that's what you got to pay. All right, cool. Can you have it ready by
done.
Thursday? It wouldn't be a grind. Same way if you were managing money for me, I would be like, dude, can you give me better returns than you give everybody else? It's like, no, I'd actually, why don't you give me a little bit less? Keep a little more for yourself. I'd rather know my money's safe and it's going to earn me money and you get happy too, and me know that you like me. It's like going to a restaurant. Geez, man, you tipped that waitress like crazy. Yeah, but did you notice that when we walked in, we sat down immediately? The restaurant manager walked over and brought us a bottle of freaking sparkling water and patted us on the back, and that's how the kids were doing in Little League, right? It's
Yep.
relationships, and it's all about, at the end of the day, bro, you continue to, you can bring everything back to mindset. When you have your mindset in the right place, man, you can quite literally accomplish anything, and you can also survive anything. And you can, quite frankly, make an enjoyable situation out of everything. And again, it just all boils back to mindset.
Oh, I love that. I love that. We'll wrap it up. Luke, what's next for you? You got a lot of irons in the fire. Tell the people how they can find you. Like, where do you see this thing? You talked about 5 years from now. I always like, you know, putting things out there for accountability purposes, and it gives drivers and goers like us a little stake in the game to, okay, I put it out into the ethers. Now I got to go
Now I
create
got to
it.
execute. Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
What's this thing look like in 5 years for you?
So what we're doing now is we're building partnerships with businesses, right? We help people. We have a B2C, relationship as well. But mostly right now, what I'm looking to do is partner with businesses who are good entrepreneurs, good business owners that, they have good values, good morals. They don't consider themselves maybe the strongest closers. And they know that their salespeople are, they hire good salespeople and they try to train them the best they can to the processes. But what they're doing is they're trying to find naturally talented salespeople and then hiring them into their business and training them to their products and procedures. When in reality, you can take anybody who's outgoing and has good values and turn them into a tremendous salesperson. So what we're doing for the marketplace right now is we're going into businesses and we're setting up their sales departments in a way where they can hire anybody. And we have a scalable onboarding through victory, for lack of better words, meaning we set you up in a way that you can hire somebody. We will help you onboard them, train them, get them through the entire process, and then run support for them weekly, all the way through until the day of kingdom come, like in perpetuity. Meaning this, imagine you're somebody who owns a car dealership or a furniture store or a brokerage firm or an insurance company, and you got people on, boots on the ground selling, or door knockers, or people in your brick and mortar establishment. And you've got a great product, you've got a great service, but you just know that you're missing deals because they're not the strongest closers they could be. That's where P2P comes in. We install our sales framework. It's a very, very easy and actionable framework that takes a salesperson from start to finish in their deal, essentially eliminating all the objections at the outset of the conversation, qualifying the customer very well, and delivering them a presentation on a product that they can actually buy and will serve their needs and should make a pretty seamless, non-objectionable close. And then we just, in perpetuity over time, we refine them and we continue to give them weekly injections of the knowledge and the training and build them over time. We've been proven extremely effective, got a lot of testimonials, but right now we're just very choosy with the people that we partner with. So if anybody out there that's hearing this is interested in sharpening their sales team, and it sounds like you fit the bill, we're not extremely expensive, but we're not the cheapest. But we deliver. We're the only sales training company in the world that guarantees delivery of results. And that's kind of our big claim to fame, is we're the only ones that'll put in contract what the result is that we're going to give you. And if we don't, you're going to get all your money back. So they can find us at paidtopersuade.com. That's the word paid, the number 2, and then the word persuade.com. But not for nothing, man. If the people on here enjoyed what they heard and they like my personal brand and they want free daily actionable sales tips, they can just follow me on Instagram, TikTok, X. Those are all at Luke Lunk, at LUKELUNK, or on YouTube, we're paid the number 2 Persuade. We're just, I'm a personal brand on the rise, man. And I believe that, when the marketplace gets to know me and the value that I bring and that this company brings, it's going to be pretty earth shattering. So I appreciate you having me on today, man. And anybody that sees this podcast, just put in the DM or in the notes on the booking that you found me here, and we'll make sure that you're discounted accordingly.
Yeah, for anybody listening, use business with the boys in your tagline when you reach out. And yeah, Luke, I appreciate it. Is there anybody, or people that are listening, anything, I feel like a lot of times people say, okay, well, I need to have a certain sales size or staff of this size. I mean, is there kind of a sweet spot for you, or is it, hey, I've got 2 sales guys, or I've got 2,000? It doesn't matter, or?
Brother, there's 2 qualifications to do business with Paid to Persuade. Number 1 is the product needs to be sold by a human being to a human being. And the threshold is you got to have a sales team, which could be 1 salesperson, which could be 1,500 salespeople. I just came back from Alabama training a company, a home services company that operates in 3 states with a huge on-the-road sales force. I've got individuals that pay me handsomely that want to be trained individually that we've gotten tremendous results for. And we've got companies that are enterprise companies, that we train. It's about the relationship for me. And it's about getting results. So I want to do business with people who are willing to make a commitment. They don't expect that we're going to change things for them in a week, but as long as they see results at the 30, the 60, the 90, and the thing continues to hockey stick, that they want to work with a company over a period of time. We're looking to partner with businesses, not in the legal sense of the word, but when you're looking to exit a business, one of the most valuable things that you can have is a third-party training partner. It looks incredibly good on the acquisition. It looks good for your risk assessment. And the results we get certainly make the P&L look pretty good too. So that's the type of relationships that we're working for, but we'll talk to anybody.
as somebody who goes through those processes, I can tell you he's not lying on that. It's a good thing for your evaluation standpoint, folks.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Luke, appreciate the time. I appreciate your story, and I love seeing guys like you kick ass. So I have no doubt that you'll continue to do so in the future. And thank you for the time, brother.
No
Appreciate
worries,
you.
my friend. It was a pleasure being here. I really, I like the opportunity to get in front of real people, and you guys are real ones. So thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it, brother. Be good.
No worries. Take care.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to come